So Bobby, let's hear a few stories about your own playing career now, your own thoughts. You famously changed your white laces before every Rangers game. Can you tell us why?
Well, I think, yeah. I did so because in one of the early games, Willie Woodburn's laces broke, and he went behind the goal to get a new pair, and we nearly lost a goal. And I remember he got such a rollicking from Mr. Struth at half time that I was determined that that was going to happen to me, because Mr. Struth, if he did give you a rollicking, it was something you would always remember. So from that point of view, and from that day onwards, I always went in and I changed my laces to make sure that I wasn't going to fall foul of a similar incident.
So speaking about reactions from the manager there, how did the Rangers crowd react to you after losing a bad goal in the 1948 Scottish Cup final versus Morton, when the ball came floating over your head from a long range free kick?
Yes, I remember that well. Certainly not a happy memory, but on the day in question, we had our usual team meeting with Mr. Struth in attendance in this old St Enoch's Hotel. And on that day, there was a tremendous gale, not just a slight wind, but a gale blowing up and down Hampden Park. And we were quite convinced that if Morton won the toss, they would kick with the wind. And so I was instructed very forcibly, emphasised very forcibly, that I had to be ready for any high swelling balls, not only in the 6 yards box, but command the whole of the penalty area. And as it happened, Morton did win the toss, and within a minute, kicking with the wind, there was a foul conceded, and Jimmy White, their left half and captain, took the ball and it swirled. He kicked it high into the air, and it swirled in the gale. And mindful of what I had been told, I flew at my goal, and to my utter horror, I realised that I'd come too far. And the ball floated right over my head, and it bounced not once, not twice, but 3 times into an empty net. And each time I see the picture of me lying upside down with my hand over my face, I instinctively just curl up. Anyway, at half time it was still 1-0 for Morton. We defended quite well after that. And I remember it was a very downcast dressing room as we sat there, and Mr. Struth looking at us. And I happened to stand up and put one foot on the seat, and I was actually retying my lace, when Mr. Struth, with his stick, he always had a stick, walking about with his stick, and he passed me and he hit me on the backside, and I nearly went 3 feet in the air. And with the extortion, now pay attention to your work. So I can tell you that in the second half, while it was all Rangers, Jimmy Cowan and the other goal, he performed miracles, and I was praying that at least we would equalise. And we did. 7 minutes from then, I think it was Tory Gillick who scrambled the ball home, and we got a draw. Anyway, that was in front of 139,000 people. So we went back to Hampden on the Wednesday night for the replay, 131,000. And people would say, where did they all come from? But certainly they did. Anyway, it was another tight game, different altogether because there was no wind. And it was only in late in extra time that Billy Williamson connected with a cross, and we won the cup. And I always remember that while the dressing room was quite different from the one that the previous Saturday, Mr. Struth, in fairness, came up to me and he said, well, Bobby, that was better tonight. That was something like it. So I just thought, well, thank you very much. But I don't know how I would have felt if we had lost the cup through that, probably the worst goal I've ever lost in my life.
And how do you think your teammates would have reacted, guys like Mr. Woodburn?
Well, they would probably have had plenty to say, because I mean that was the beauty of Rangers. I mean, you spoke your mind. That was a great thing, and I think that was what bonded us together, because playing as we did, almost the same team every week, Brown, Young and Shaw, McCall, Woodburn, Cox, and the forward line, I think the fringe players might be Willie Ray, who might come in, Eddie Rutherford, Eddie Rutherford, Willie Payton.
Yeah.
You know, these were players who could come in, and Billy Williamson as well, and do a job for you, you know, while maybe somebody was having a rest or whatever, you know. But basically, as I recall, the defence, we played consistently every week, and we did have a great respect for each other, and that's what bonded us together and formed the Iron Curtain.
Would you rather have played in your era, where the keepers were a fair game for a challenge, or today's era where keepers are generally given more protection?
No, I think, in fairness, I mean, people now talk about getting the ball into the box, getting it into the box. So what? I mean, we played with wingers, it was always going into the box. But having said that, the goalkeeper had always to be very careful what he was doing, because he could be hit in the shoulder, I mean, or hassled while he had the ball, and you had to get rid of it, and you had to have an understanding with your full backs or whatever for someone to lie in an open space, so that if you couldn't kick it properly, you could throw it to them. Whereas now, as I see it, goalkeepers should get the ball, and if their team's ahead by a goal or so, they can take all the time in the world before they dispatch it. And I think they're protected too much. I mean, it's not the first time. I think I remember there was a centre forward called Julianson at Dundee. He hit me with the shoulder, and it was the one and only time I remember conceding a goal like that. But it was fair and square, and I was in the back of the net, ball and all. So therefore you had to decide whether you were going to punch it, catch it, and dispatch it. You know, but you couldn't do it unless you had your own teammates appreciating the position and getting into an open space where you could where they could be found.
But it was a far tougher game, I suppose, in the days. But it was better entertainment for the fans.
Well, I watched the games today, and admittedly, technically, a lot of the players are better, but sometimes I think that the way we played, as I say, in a loosely 4-2-4 formation, the thrills, the goal-mouth thrills, were far more for people, and the goals were much more welcome, you know, than they are today. I mean, times you see the ball going, it's a passing game, which I quite appreciate, the ball going from one penalty area up to the other. Sometimes if it breaks down, it goes all the way back to the goalkeeper. Whereas in my day, with two wingers, and people played that way, both Scotland and England, and it only changed after England won the World Cup, when Alf Ramsey experimented with his three players, and you had 4-3-3. And since then we've had 4-4-2, and we've even had 4-5-1, and if the papers were right, perhaps last year we played an international with no forwards at all. So from the point of view of excitement and goalmouth incidents, there's no doubt in my mind that in my day there were far more. And when you think of the attendances in those days, I don't think it would have come unless they were satisfied. But having said that, it was a working man's game, and they stood and they watched, and they appreciated the entertainment that because football at the end of the day is an entertainment, and they appreciated the entertainment and the thrills and spills that were there. No quarter asked and none given. The teams in my era, nearly all full time, and you know, we won, it was 1948-49, we won the treble. Now, we won the league in the last day of the season. Dundee were a point ahead of us, and they were playing Falkirk. We were playing Albion Rovers. Now the Albion Rovers we played in those days didn't play in the ramshackle Clifton Hill that is at the present day. There'd be about 20,000-25,000 people in there then. And we had to win and Dundee had to lose. We heard at half time that Dundee were losing 2-0 at Falkirk. We went on and we won 4-0 at Albion Rovers, and Dundee eventually lost. So we pipped them for the league. That was the league in 1949. The League Cup was a different story. At Hampden, we played Raith Rovers. Now Raith were very much the underdogs, but as so very often happens, they play above themselves. And in the first half, I remember they had a big winger called Joyner, and he had a cracking shot that hit the top of the crossbar, and somebody else hit the post. And we didn't play well at all in the first half, and we were lucky to go in 0-0. Mr. Struth had a word with us, and the second half we bucked in. I think, as I recall, I think it was Gillick that scored after 10 minutes, and Willie Payton scored the second. So we actually won the League Cup, but it was touch and go. The Scottish Cup final that year we played Clyde, and well, I believe, as I recall, we won 4-1. It was an easier game, but it was a great season for us, having won all the domestic trophies.
On the subject of Rangers goalkeepers, past and present, can I ask you about the great Jerry Dawson, your memories of him?
Well, Jerry Dawson was held in the highest esteem by the Rangers supporters. He was known as the Prince of Goalkeepers. I saw him in his latter days, and he certainly was in every measure a Rangers goalkeeper. The only thing I felt with Jerry was he had difficulty sometimes kicking the dead ball. In those days it was a leather ball which absorbed the moisture, but apart from that he was like a cat, and he was a great Rangers goalkeeper. And I felt when I signed for Rangers that certainly I had a job to try and fill his shoes.
And on the subject there, on the current Rangers goalkeeper, Alan McGregor, how do you feel about him?
Oh, I think Alan's a great goalkeeper. I think he's a splendid goalkeeper. You know, I was just thinking last year, in fact, I won £20 just as a side bet. We were watching the game last year. They played Celtic, and I think it was in the cup, and Samaras had a penalty kick.
The league game, it was a league game when they saved it?
The league game?
Yeah.
No, well, it was a cup game I'm thinking of. Cup game. Celtic had a penalty.
Yeah.
And they scored. It was a good penalty. Now, they played in the league game.
Yeah, after.
And Samaras, Celtic got a penalty. And I was sitting, and I said to my son-in-law, and a few were there, when I saw Samaras going to take it, I said, I'll bet you £20 McGregor saves it. And so my son-in-law took me on. Now the reason I say that was that Samaras had taken one, and there are not many players, you think about it, not many players who can place the ball into either side. Yeah. The goalkeeper almost invariably goes one way, and okay, if it goes the other side he's no chance. But I reckon McGregor had done his homework, and I thought it was a bad move on Celtic's part for Samaras to take the kick. Well, you saw McGregor made a great save, but he went the right way.
Yeah.
He went the right way because he had done his homework. And I feel that Celtic maybe lost the league because he didn't win, because he didn't score that penalty. But having said that, I think Alan McGregor is a first-class goalkeeper, and he's been a pillar in the Rangers team at the present time.
And I know at the Johnny Hubbard dinner that we were at recently, last year, you had a few hours chatting with the legendary goalie, Andy Gorham. What's your thoughts on Andy?
Well, I think he's the best goalkeeper I've seen there. You know, I mean, I was quite friendly with Stephen Kloss. Stephen stayed in Helensburgh here, and I quite often had a walk with Stephen in the woods around Helensburgh when he was walking his dog, and we had a chat about Rangers and what have you. He was a good goalkeeper, very good goalkeeper. If he had a fault, I sometimes felt that he could have commanded his area perhaps more convincingly, you know. But then again, a lot of goalkeepers now, because of the protection they get, are prone to stay on the line. I didn't see Woods very much, but he was a very competent goalkeeper, and did extremely well for Rangers.
And Andy Gorham?
Oh, I think he's the best I've seen. Andy Gorham, yes. Andy, he filled the goal in his own way, you know, and you felt a confidence about Andy Gorham, and I think it spread to the rest of the team. Yeah. And he saved at critical times, you know, for Rangers, on many, particularly against Celtic, at very critical times. And I think the late Tommy Burns mentioned that some words to that effect anyway.